Hi everyone, today we're going to be talking about whether the Joe Biden and Kamala Harris campaign should be investing in the possible swing state of Texas. So we're going to be discussing what are the pros, what are the cons of investing in Texas. Sorry about that. And then I'm going to make a final judgment on whether they should be going into Texas, into the Texas media market and trying to persuade Texas voters, or should they leave that to 2024? So, firstly, let's take a look at the Real Clear Politics average of the recent polling. And it does seem that overall, Texas is sort of swinging back to Trump, right? So we saw in early 2020, it was very close. You know, it did bounce around a bit, but Biden seemed to be losing a lot of his lead. And then he sort of is starting to catch up here. But then now it seems that he is going back down again. And right now, Trump is at an average of plus 3.5 on Biden. Another thing to take into account is that there's a lot of undecided voters in some of these polls. Trump, even though he's leading by 3.5, isn't even close to 50% that he needs to actually win the state, unless obviously there is a major third-party challenge. But that's not really that's not really the case this time around. So in Texas, we can see it was close. It sort of separated out a bit. And then Biden really caught up, but then now it seems Trump is regaining some of his lead, and it seems that with the more recent polls, it does seem the momentum is with Trump. It went from sort of a +1, +2 with either Biden or Trump, whereas now it's separating back out, and the latest poll has Trump leading by 7 on Joe Biden. This is the 538 polling average. This is a lot more favorable to Biden. It shows a much closer race. You know, you could see that it was sort of Trump did have quite the lead, but then Biden was able to narrow it back down, and since then it's pretty much been a coin flip ever since about June. According to the 538 average, Joe Biden has a 47% of the vote, and then 45% in the most recent Global Strategy Group poll that was not included in the average in Real Clear Politics. This is another data point that I wanted to take a look at. This is the coronavirus number of cases in just the state of Texas. So you can see Texas was really hit, one of the worst states. So you could see they started off just a little bit of cases, but then it sort of seemed to be dying down about May, but then it did seem to be coming back up. I'm just sort of following the peaks here, all the way up to July 17th. That was the worst day, but then now it does seem to be very slowly going back down with new lockdown orders. But I'm not going to say that this graph is favorable for the Texas GOP, because Texas was hit, one of the worst states there. This is two previous elections that I wanted to take a look at briefly. This is the Cruz-O'Rourke race, 50.9 to 48.3. So you can see there's lots of red here. In sort of rural Texas, still lots of people who are voting just down the line for the GOP. And then you can see here there's still quite a bit of blue here down in South Texas, and also in sort of blue islands there in the different cities in Texas. But you can see here that O'Rourke really was able to narrow the gap. He was able to win Fort Worth, even though Clinton was not able to do that. He was able to win the north of Austin, the Austin suburbs. There you can see that. And he was also able to really widen out that margin in the Houston suburbs, and he was able to run up the score in San Antonio, Austin, Houston, Dallas, and Fort Worth, those really big 5 cities, and he was able to stretch it out there in South Texas. And that was really how O'Rourke was able to win. His strategy of going to all of the counties didn't really pay off in this rural Texas. He was going to sort of try and make up some of this final little gap by not winning rural Texas, but just, getting that gap a bit closer, right? But it doesn't seem he was able to do that. A lot of these counties, they voted for like 80% for Cruz, 85% for Cruz, 75% for Cruz. So if O'Rourke was trying to get that up to only 70% or only 60%, that could have been part of his strategy, but it doesn't seem that it worked. And especially on a national campaign, I don't think you'll be able to persuade a lot of those folks to vote for Joe Biden. In the previous presidential election, Trump won by about 7%. Sorry, my mistake. He did not win by 7%. But he was able to do pretty well in Texas. It was the smallest margin in recent history, but still Democrats haven't won. This is one of the most important statistics. Even with all these tight polls, Democrats haven't won a statewide in Texas since 76. That's a long time ago, right? Since 76 with Jimmy Carter, right? And he was from Georgia, so that sort of helped a bit. But yeah. Another data point I wanted to take a look at here, in the top battleground states, these 6 states, Wisconsin, North Carolina, Florida, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Arizona, Biden right now, and granted, this isn't a great average because it's not weighted correctly. Like Florida is the biggest state, it should be weighted higher because it has more electoral votes than, say, Wisconsin, which is one of the smaller states there. But still, it sort of shows Biden's plus 4.2. That's a margin Trump. If he can get down to plus 2, he could win on election day. If Biden's only plus 2, he could definitely win. A state like Arizona, a state like North Carolina, even states like Florida, Trump could win these states. Biden announces $280 million fall ad buy across 15 states, by far the biggest reservation of the 2020 race by either campaign. It is a sign of the swift turnabout of Joe Biden's finances since he became the Democratic nominee. And this is important because he's investing in states like Texas, states like Georgia, states like North Carolina, states that are traditionally Republican, but Biden thinks he can flip. I would caution on the Biden campaign and not get too optimistic. I think that the Biden campaign should really nail down these 6 states here, these top battlegrounds, along with some other battlegrounds like New Hampshire, Nevada. You should keep an eye on Minnesota. The Trump campaign is looking at Minnesota. Keep an eye on places like Colorado. Keep an eye on places like Virginia. And also go on the offense of these states. Then I think that the Democrats will be in a position that can, if the Democrats were able to win all 6 of these states, they would be in a position to gain probably upwards of 330 to 350 electoral votes, which is very impressive. So I don't think that, so if we go back, should Biden-Harris invest in Texas? I think that they should not invest in Texas. I think that they should leave that until 2024, when the demographics are continuing to shift towards the Democrats. And another thing is, if the Biden-Harris campaign does go all in on Texas and they lose, then maybe in 2024, when they do have a chance, then maybe like a hypothetical, I don't know, Harris-Buttigieg ticket or Harris-O'Rourke ticket. Harris-O'Rourke isn't a good example, but a Harris-Buttigieg or a Harris and Cuomo or whatever, may feel a bit, pessimistic about Texas in a way that they would not have if the Biden-Harris campaign did not invest in Texas. So overall, I think that they should not be investing in Texas. Overall, I think it's going to widen out to a much bigger Trump lead as the election goes on. So overall, I think that it's a mistake to be investing in Texas. But I can see why they would want to invest in Texas. It's 38 electoral votes. Every Democrat's best dream is to invest in Texas and win it. But, sorry about that. But I don't think they should be investing in Texas. And as for my final prediction, I predict Donald Trump will win in the state of Texas. So that's it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Good night.